Hiya, folks. My name is Stella, and you're probably used to the stories that mostly take place within the city. But today's story will be outside the city limits, and it will even have a mystical feel to it. So, I recommend turning off the lights, pouring yourself something hot, and getting comfortable. Let's go. I was born and raised in a village, far from, shall we say, far from civilization. But nevertheless, my parents wanted me to be educated and not in our barn, but in a normal everyday school. Outside of those chores and school, it was very boring. Well, I think you can imagine that in the villages, there is no entertainment except work. Well, sometimes we get a small DJ to come by and play here, but it's rare. And it's not like Johnny Depp comes around here often. By the way, our neighbors were great. They also really liked to work. They regularly invited us to hang in their sauna, and apart from our neighbors, almost everyone knew each other. I also managed to earn extra money for myself by working for a woman. Her name was Louise, and I would babysit her baby while she went out about her business, like 3 times a week. Sometimes it wasn't easy with this woman, because with the first child, mothers get too paranoid and overprotective, which affects those around them. But honestly, it was better than slaving away in the vegetable garden. There was also an old woman there. I called her Grand Martin, also not an easygoing person, a war veteran, very strict. But for helping her, I got help with homework. Since my parents could not always give me enough time, I had to do a lot myself. So after another day of work, the whole family gathered in the kitchen, around the table for dinner. Everyone took their seats. Mom served hot food, and there was a knock at the gate, and the dog started barking. Dad got up from the table and went to find out who was there on time. We didn't wait for him, because judging by the smell, Mom had cooked something really good. 5 minutes later, Dad comes back into the house, and we started to ask him who had come and what they wanted. He said it was a woman who lived a little further away from us. She goes door to door and asks if anyone has her baby. What baby? I asked. We don't want strangers. The father says Dad said he told her the same thing, that she asked to see the house in case her baby had been there. Dad sent her away and told her to bother another home. What a strange woman. After we ate dinner, the door rattled again. Dad was about to get angry and wanted to tell her off, but it was a neighbor who asked if a woman had come to see us and asked to see the house. Dad agreed, and it turned out that she had also been to the neighbor's house and had gone around half the village looking for the missing baby. Everyone was alarmed and called the police, who also began going door to door, but with a search party. It took the whole night, but there were no results. Time passed. The search continued. Neighbors whispered, and it was time for me to go to Louise's house, as scheduled. But when I arrived, Louise was worried about something, constantly pacing and calling relatives and the police to find comfort or to find out details about the missing person. It turned out to be her baby, and when she saw me, she immediately cried. I must have reminded her of the loss. I spent the whole day with her, infusing her with chamomile tea and reassuring her that everything was going to be okay. And by the evening, she finally fell asleep without strength, and so did I. The next day, I went to Grandmatron, and while wiping dust off her antiques, we discussed the situation. Oh, I do not even know what I would do if this happened to me. Do you have any children? I asked. If I had, I would be the happiest mother in the world, but they both died before they were even born. No, if there were, I would do everything I could to find them and bring them back. When I was about to leave her, she came out with me, said goodbye, and went the other way. And I thought that was strange. She hardly ever goes anywhere except to the store. And most of the time, she sits on the bench outside the house and watches people pass back and forth. Out of curiosity, I asked her where she was going. Grandmatron said that she had to go to a neighbor who lives nearby to run some errands. I gave up and went back to my place. Exactly 3 days later, when we gathered around the table again, the door banged and the dogs barked again. My dad was late at work and wasn't around, so I went to open the door. And our frightened neighbor and his wife were at the door, asking if we had seen their youngest son. I said I didn't and had no idea what they were yelling about. The two of them told me that they, too, had a missing baby and that this was getting out of hand. We have a maniac on our hands. He must be found and punished. Once again, the police were called, and the entire village began to search houses and stores, and even the local drunkard helped. The whole village hadn't slept that night, and I was one of them. I got bored, so I went to my friend's house. She lived a bit farther away from me, but that's all right. I would get tired, and after a good chat, I would fall asleep soundly. When we went to her place, we put the kettle on, switched the TV on, and started discussing what was going on here. My parents and hers were busy looking away. What if someone would kidnap us? I said there would be no such thing, because this Jack the Ripper only kidnaps infants, and she and I are already old. After a short period of time, my friend told me that lately, when she walks by the forest not far from their house, some music is playing, and that it was not there before. I asked what kind of music it was, to which she replied, as if it was from an antique box, like in the cartoon, Anastasia, which you have to wind by hand, and it only plays at night. I was curious, so I suggested we go together. At first, my friend doubted whether it was worth it, but I argued with the pretext of adventure, because there is nothing to do anyway. Well, she agreed. We took the lanterns, cookies, and we went to the woods, oriented to the sound. When we reached it, my friend asked, "There, do you hear that? It's playing faintly." "Yes, I do hear it. Such a beautiful melody." We got closer and closer, and at one point, the music was under our feet. Nothing was clear, because there was just the ground beneath us. But as we took another step, we heard the creaking of a tree. We sat down to take a closer look and saw one solid plank, covered with sand, earth, and branches. Our curiosity knew no bounds, and we immediately started throwing everything aside with our hands until we got to where the two babies were lying, with half-empty milk bottles in their hands, and this box lay next to them. To say that we were shocked is an understatement, and we also had the feeling that we had found treasure. So that's where he's hiding them. Thief! Fortunately, we raised our younger siblings, so it was not difficult for us to take these two in our arms. But as soon as we did, we heard a shout, and then we saw the light from the lantern approaching us. We were brutally frightened and began to run. A voice shouted to us, "Give them back to me!" Apparently, it was the kidnapper. But why was the voice female and so hoarse? When I turned around, I saw that a dark figure was weaving behind us, and I stopped myself and my friend in order to understand once and for all who it was. Slowly, the silhouette approached us, closer and closer, until the outline of the face became clearly visible. And it belonged to the very same woman I was caring for and helping with the household chores, Grandmatron. Once again, I was stunned. "How could you do this? I thought you were the strongest, most resilient woman I knew, and it turns out you're a criminal." "I don't care what you thought. Give them back to me." "No, we'll tell everyone you kidnapped these poor kids. Maybe you wanted to eat them for breakfast like Baba Yaga, but I won't come to you anymore. That's for sure." I held the baby with one hand and grabbed my friend's arm with the other and dashed off, scooping sand into her eyes. Grandmatron yelled something in gibberish, probably swearing, but I didn't care anymore. The main thing was to run home and tell our families, which we did, and half an hour later, they found the Grandmatron. As it turned out, it was not hard for her, sitting on the street every day to see a single mother with a child, to follow her and at the right time silently sneak home and at night steal a baby. It was the same with the neighbors, because they lived across the street, and after watching them for another week, I, just as quietly as a Slenderman, snuck in and stole the squeaker. The children, as you understand, were returned to their happy families. But the question is, what was the purpose of the box? Well, that's easy. She can't see well, nor can she remember, and the box helps her locate it. So be careful who you trust, and take care of yourself and your loved ones. Bye!